Every day, I long deep inside of me. Every day, I long for what's plain to see. Every day, I long to be with you. Every day, I long for the truth. Just kidding, I'm falling in love with you. More with everything you do. Speak out of mountains, tremble with your love. And at the sound of your voice, know you are near, be near to me. And the rain falls like tears, and most days I cry, but facing my fears, the truth I won't deny. Just can't help falling in love with you. Love with you. More than every little thing you do. Speak out about them, travel with you. And at the sound of your voice, know you are near. Just can't help falling in love with you. Love with you. More than every little thing you do. Speak out about them, travel with you. And at the sound of your voice, know you are near, be near to me.
And I press this, and I press this, and I minus this. We should be live.
Okay, hello and welcome to Church Online with Pastors Newms and Bill.
Hola.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? That's the extent of your Spanish, isn't it? Hola.
Poquito. Some ordering.
Some ordering. Nachos, burritos, tacos,
Tortillas.
tortillas,
No lechuga.
con queso. Yeah.
No lechuga.
So, no lechuga.
No lechuga.
Yeah, no lechuga for you. Yeah, I get extra lechuga on my stuff. You get no lechuga on your stuff.
Yeah. The things you gotta learn so you don't die. No lechuga.
Right. Because lechuga green and you allergic to green.
Yep.
Or rather, you're allergic to the chemical. Oh, my looks like my microphone just died or something.
What?
1 second. Is my audio coming through clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Just one of the pieces I use is going crazy with lights. Yes. So, I see you're not at your parents' house anymore.
I am not at my parents' house. I am in a very echoey room because it hasn't been set up yet. And I am we moved in on Friday. We closed on the house and moved in on Friday. And
Yeah.
we have just been frantically, setting up beds, unpacking boxes, getting used to how loud children are upstairs.
Stop. What are you guys doing? I'm just walking across the room, man.
Yeah, it really is. The movers broke some stuff, as is always expected. At least I didn't lose a whole, all my Christmas ornaments out of the back of a truck.
Hey, now.
You don't have your pans? Use the fryers.
You helped me load that truck.
I know I helped you load that truck. Use the fryers to cook the chicken nuggets for the children.
And if that ding-dang 18-wheeler had just switched lanes instead of running into that box of Christmas tree ornaments and exploding it all over the road, we would be fine. We'd still have those Christmas ornaments. Oh,
Yeah.
man, that box exploded. I didn't realize that's what would happen if an 18-wheeler hit a cardboard box of Christmas ornaments going 70 miles an hour. I had no idea, but, man, that thing just exploded.
It did. Yeah, we just realized we haven't unpacked our pans yet, so we don't know how we're going to cook the children dinner. Aunt Heather went to Walmart and got dinner supplies, and then came home and went, Tina goes, I don't have pans. I'm like,
I gotta go find the pans. I don't know where they are.
use the fryers. Well, what about for everything else? Shoot.
Fry it. Fry everything.
Can't really fry pizza rolls.
You can if you have an air fryer.
You could, but it's gonna take a long. It's gonna cook weird, I think.
That's how we air fry our pizza rolls.
You air fry your pizza rolls?
Yeah, Greg air fries all the pizza rolls. Yeah.
I'm gonna mute my mic for a second.
Okay. Pastor Bill says we can air fry the pizza rolls.
Okay, I'm back.
If you get the Tostino's ones, it actually has air fryer instructions on the bag.
Okay, but then that's 30 minutes for one thing, 30 minutes for another, 30 minutes for another for
Okay.
everybody. I'm not doing that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You just start with the hungriest
We'll just
person's
have sandwiches
stuff.
tonight.
Okay, we'll have sandwiches.
I'll probably find the pans tomorrow.
Okay, we'll have sandwiches for dinner. That works. Everything's been very behind with all of this.
Yeah.
What
is that?
I just got hit in the head with the bag, so it.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, everything's been really far behind. Like up at 6 a.m. and then like dinner, like lunch, wherever part of the country you're in, at 1, and then supper at, hey, it's time to eat. Last night we forgot we didn't eat dinner, and the children reminded us at like 9:15 when we were trying to put them to bed. They were like, we didn't eat. We're like, what? Yeah, oh no, we just had lunch at 2. Oops.
Didn't eat, did we? Oh no.
So, it's been an interesting ride over the last 3 days. Lots of trips to Walmart as we realize how much stuff we left in Texas or, just don't have,
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, I got this new big shower that doesn't have shelves in it. It's a big old nice shower with no shelves.
Big old nice, no shells. So our week here at Casa Shea.
I thought it was House of Shea.
What?
I thought it was House of Shea, not Casa Shea.
That's what I said. It's the same thing. Anyway, so we have that one window that I got hit by that ricochet, and got that little hole in it. Well, not little hole, but a hole, and I put a board in there. And then about a month or two after that, we had a hailstorm that broke that window more, so I put another board to cover that part of the broken window, and that also broke a hole in Greg's window in his room and a hole in the kitchen window, and I taped all those up. And then this week, finally, we kind of got a fire lit under us to get someone out here to fix it because it was raining on Monday, and what was left of the glass in the living room window just fell out to the outside while it was raining. And I was like, we got boards in the window now, but like this much glass is left of the upper half of the window. So I got a trash bag and I taped it all up. But then you haven't seen it recently. Our yard, we have these wild Mustang grapes, and they've been growing like wildfire. And so that's caused a problem with actually getting to the windows. So starting Tuesday morning, we had to use a gas-powered tool to be cutting all of those growths away. And so we've had a busy week trying to do all that.
Yeah. They die again?
Which has not been great, but we finally got to the windows, and then we finally got the smaller ones fixed. But then the bigger ones, we have to go to. Okay, thank you, teams, for letting me know speakers aren't working, and I need to change to another speaker choice instead of just letting me choose another speaker choice. That was helpful. Okay, yeah. So this week, because the glass for the other windows has to be sourced from a different place. So this week we'll finally get the rest of the windows fixed. So there's, it's been a crazy week with a lot of working outside in the heat.
There we go. Turn it up. I've got my volume all the way up on my phone on Facebook, and I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Hey man, I'm getting feedback. Not feedback here, but can you turn the volume up on the output, because she says she's got it on Facebook with the volume turned all the way up, and she's still having trouble hearing what we're saying. You're just getting your new setup set up and all that, but
Speak again?
so I am speaking right now, la la la, and lots of technical difficulties all the time. This is great.
Okay, you're hitting yellow every time on our output, so it should be cleaner now.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, so we've got to finish working on that glass stuff this week, and
Crap.
thankfully.
No. Okay,
So-
I fixed it.
You fixed something? Okay.
Okay.
So thankfully, we have family that can help us get that stuff done and all that, because I don't know how to replace glass. That's not something they teach in school, or at least not in the school that I went to. But so that's been my week. Not as exciting as moving into a new house.
Well, I don't know, because as you do things, you slowly find everything that's wrong in a new house too. It's like, oh wow, they just repainted over some dirt here. So as
Over
you
some dirt.
touch it, it comes off.
But it's got that nice textured feel
Yeah.
to it.
Or like,
Nice texture-y.
ooh, wow, there's a real good squeak on several doors, and oh look, no one's watered the grass in a couple weeks because they've been gone already, and so a couple of the bushes are dry. Just little things, and
Little thing. Yeah.
it's the same moving into anything, but it's just that aspect of, well, we got to fix it because it's not, like a rental property or how that goes. It's like, okay, well, I have to be the one.
Yeah, you own it, man. It's yours.
Yeah. So
If you don't
weird.
fix it, nobody else is gonna.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird having thinking about the fact that me and Tina own a house. But I don't have, like I said, my setup isn't complete because I've been trying to get the girls set up, and so over the next couple of days I'll work on my setup more and more, and after we get done with our conversation tonight, I have to order a desk because there are none in any stores that you can just go buy right now because so many people have had to set up home offices. So
yeah, and it looks like we're headed into a whole lot more of all that jazz coming up for the whole country. I mean, Florida broke New York's single day record for new cases yesterday. which is crazy. But yeah. Okay. So this week's podcast.
The donkey. That's all that's important about Balaam.
No, that's not all that's important about
That's
Balaam.
what I read when I read the podcast earlier, talking about Balaam's donkey, and then I didn't read the rest of it because you started talking about Balaam's donkey, and I know exactly that story.
So you read the first paragraph and then you stopped reading?
Yeah, because I know everything about Balaam's donkey. Isn't that the point of the podcast?
No, not at all. There's way more to the story of Balaam than just Balaam and a talking donkey.
It's a good thing I read the whole thing then, so I knew that joke and I could set it up correctly.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's right. That's absolutely right. So, Balaam, if you went around doing today what Balaam did then, they'd call you a sorcerer or a wizard or
a fraud.
A fraud or something. They'd call you something. But,
traveling evangelist.
A TV event. He'd be a televangelist or something.
There's no telling how he would fit his niche nowadays.
There's no telling how he would do his shtick, pull his shtick out.
Corporate espionage, probably. Actually,
That's actually. I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think Balaam would be a corporate espionager
because he liked money.
He loved money. He loved the money. So, just a quick recap. Balaam. People would hire him to place blessings or curses. He would consult with God first, and God would meet with him. And I got the impression that they always meant in a dream, although they didn't always clarify in the biblical account whether or not it was a dream. But God would meet with him, and he would tell him, okay, you can say this, or you can say that, or don't say this, or do this, or don't do this. And then he would go and do it. And so then the problem lies in the man who wants to hire him, Balak, of gosh, my brain, and I'm sure it's right here in front of me somewhere.
Moabites?
Balak of the Moabites. Balak the Moabite looks out his window one morning and he sees basically a swarm of locust people. That's what he sees. That's what he's thinking. He sees a swarm of people that are camping just right outside his borders. And, the real issue for him is that when he was a kid, his father, Zippor, had lost a significant portion of Moab to the Amorites, right? And the Israelites had basically just whooped the Amorites from one side of their territory to the other and left them running. All because the Amorites said, no, you can't pass through our land and drink our water peacefully. This is our land. You're going to have to go around. And the Israelites said, well, God, what do you want us to do? And God said, well, technically it's your land. They can't really tell you can't pass through. So then when they went to pass through, the Amorites came out and attacked them, and the Israelites then wiped out the Amorites. And so Balak's looking out the window, and the people who defeated his father are now on his borders. So obviously fear.
Mm-hmm.
And then just their sheer numbers. The advisors of Balak told him that if they didn't do something about the people of Israel, then they were going to come in and basically eat everybody out of house and home. I mean, they were just going to come in and eat everything. Nothing would survive. Just the sheer feeding of the Israelites, the Moabites thought would cause them to be eradicated. And so, fear upon fear. So Balak sends off for Balaam, come and curse these people. And Balaam, goes to God, and God says, no, we're not going to do that. And Balaam says, okay, guys, I can't come with you. I can't curse these people. And so then Balak sends back people of a higher rank and offers, whatever you want, name your price. I'll give you anything you want. And Balaam goes to God again. Now, I'm pretty convinced Balaam only went to God again because of the whole "I'll give you whatever you want" thing. Not because he thought the answer would be different. He was just hoping, well, God, they've sweetened the deal, so come on, God. And God was like, okay, fine, you can go with them, but only do what I tell you to do, right? So then he gets up in the morning and he saddles up his donkey and he heads out. And there's no explanation given as to why this angers the Lord. And the Spirit of the Lord, the angel of the Lord shows up to block his path, except that God just told him, don't do anything until I tell you to do it. And God didn't tell him to saddle up his donkey and leave yet. He told him, you can go with them, but don't do anything until I tell you to, right? So then they have the whole donkey experience, and you and I know the funny story about us concerning Balaam's donkey story, but
why did you strike your ass? Have I not been a good ass?
That's not exactly what I was talking about, but I was talking about I got a word from the Lord for you.
Oh, yes, that too. Forgot that was that one. Yeah, okay. That's a fun one.
Yeah, it's a fun story. But now we gotta tell it. All right, so we're at a youth camp. So I'm a youth pastor, and Newms is basically single-handedly financing the whole youth group and all of our activities and everything, all the ministry we're doing, because the church itself didn't have the budget set up to where they could support that kind of ministry. They were doing good to dot all the I's and cross all the T's for all the other, ministries that had going on. So, Jonathan was tithing into the youth group, so we could do things like, have parties and actually minister effectively the way we thought needed to be done. But I digress. So we're at this
small
youth camp.
group, though. It wasn't like I was financing something huge. Let's be clear.
No, it was a small group, but it was getting bigger. I mean, it more than doubled in size while we were, doing what we were doing. Anyway, so
was the Coke
we go to
machine?
youth camp. We did. We got a Coke machine. It was nice. It was a little loud, but that's neither here nor there. Plug it in. Wait until everything's nice and cold. Unplug it right before service. Plug it back in at the end of service, and have cold Cokes again. Anyway, so we're at camp, and so there's just stuff going on that I wasn't comfortable with. Most of us weren't comfortable with it. And then they're doing this thing where they were like, we prayed about it and we asked the Lord to give us words of knowledge to speak into your youth pastors' lives. And so we want to speak into them, and they're going and they're doing different people and speaking into their lives. And I'm like, that's fine. If they want to get something from the Lord through that, that's fine. This isn't for me. I'm not. And then they call my name, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's nothing she can say at this point. The lady who's doing the presentation, there's nothing she can say that can make me believe a word that comes out of her mouth. And she's like, okay, I got a word from the Lord for you, but first. And I haven't looked this up, but God told me to give you Numbers 22, and I can't remember the exact verse, but it's the verse that says, and Balaam's donkey, God opened Balaam's donkey's mouth, and he talked to Balaam. And that was the scripture that she gave as the reference that God gave. And I was just like, oh my gosh, only God would know the one verse that would turn that around and go, oh yes, you will listen to what's being said.
I would also like to point out that even God thought she was. Never mind. I'm not going to go there.
Whoa!
I didn't say that.
Oh my goodness!
I'm not the one who gave her the verse. They made me take my hat off, and there was no reason for it, and it was.
You're a brand new cowboy. I mean, you just got that cowboy hat.
I worshipped in a hallway. We're just going to leave it alone. We're going to leave it alone.
You did. Because they were like, no hats in the Lord's house. And you were like, in the Lord? I mean, this is like a makeshift warehouse that you've sectioned off into an auditorium. My body's more of the Lord's house than this building is. What are you even talking about?
But you can't get into the religious debate with an usher.
slack-jawed staring at you, and I was like, yeah, he's right. This is great. I'm just going to sit back and watch this unfold because I'm enjoying this. But anyway.
I worshipped in the hallway.
You did. You ended up worshiping in the hallway. So, Balaam, he goes to Moab, and he meets with Balak on the outskirts of the town, and they're like, hey, let's go to a high place, which, by the way, these high places were set up specifically for the worship of the god Baal, okay? Now, the Bible never...
Whoa, wait. Go back to the Bible never...
Right. The Bible never identifies Baal as a quote-unquote non-existent false god. The Bible always identifies Baal as someone that the people shouldn't worship. Now, Elijah faces off with the worshipers of Baal, and he says, I tell you what, let's test your God and all of your people, all your priests of Baal, against me and my God, and let's see what happens. And so all of their priests are cutting themselves and offering sacrifices and trying to get Baal to respond. And Baal never responds because Baal never responds. That's not Baal's MO. He doesn't respond. I mean, there's a couple of things you do to get a response, but that's not biblically recorded. Anyway, so then Elijah says, you know what? The wood I have on my altar is a little too dry. Why don't you pour some water on there? Because, you know, I think what's going to happen is not going to convince you, but I think if we douse the wood in water first.
During a drought.
And so, during a drought. So they go off and they get some water and they pour the water on the wood and they really soak the wood in water. I mean, it's sitting and standing water. And Elijah prays and fire falls down out of heaven and consumes the wood, the stones, everything just eaten up by the fire.
The water in the trough that has formed around the, just all of it, just poof.
Everything's just gone. Just gone. And, so there you go. All right, so they're on this hill where traditionally they worship Baal. And Balaam sees the people of Israel spread out, you know, in front of him. If you can imagine being up on a mountain and you're looking out and you see just people everywhere down in the valley below you. At least, you know, you know, maybe tens of millions. Yeah. I don't know how many people there were in their camp. So he looks at Balak and he says, this is what we're going to do. I need 7 altars and 7 bulls and 7 rams, and we're going to sacrifice a bull and a ram on each altar. And I'm sure Balak was like, yes, nobody's worshipped Baal better than this guy ever. Except that's not what Balaam was doing.
Right.
Balaam was hedging his bets. Balaam knew exactly what God was about to say, and so Balaam was trying to butter him up by having Balak offer a sacrifice. And I don't mean literally a sacrifice. I mean literally to give up something of his own possession in order to try to gain God's favor, right?
Again, so all in search of money.
Right, all in search of money. This is Balaam's only motivation is to get paid, right?
Yeah.
So he's going to grease the wheels. So they do all this, and he goes to God, and God's like, okay, here's what you're going to say. And God pronounces a blessing over the people of Israel. And so Balaam's like, all right. So he goes back, and he tells Balak, and Balak's like, oh, that's not what I want to hear. So then they go to another place of Baal, and they do the whole song and dance again. And God comes to Balaam and gives him another blessing over the people of Israel. And so he goes and he delivers that to Balak, and Balak's like, no! And Balaam's like, let's do it one more time. Just one more time. Maybe God will... So they do the whole thing on another hill of Baal. The whole thing. 7 altars, 7 rams, 7 bulls, sacrifice them all, burnt offerings. He goes to meet with God. God gives him another blessing over the people of Israel. He goes back and he gives that to Balak, and Balak is infuriated. And then, and then God speaks through Balaam again and places a curse on Balak and the people of Moab. that the Israelites are going to utterly destroy them and wipe them off the face of the earth. I mean, this is what happens when you try to manipulate God, right? When you try to manipulate God, you get the wrong side of the bull's horns, so to speak. And that's what ends up happening to Balaam. Okay.
What side's the good side of a bull's horn?
The good side of the bull's horns is when you can see them from behind the bull while he's running away from you. That's the good side of the bull's horns, because he's running away.
But isn't that still just shit? Poo?
No, because he's running away.
But that's just a bull butt.
You're not looking at the butt, you're looking at the horns.
I don't know, man.
Don't be like that. Did you see that video on TikTok where the guy bought the new bull and the bull got stuck in one of those little building type things? It was dragging the building all over the farm and running into stuff. It's hilarious.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah, it's funny. I should have sent it to you guys, but I didn't. That's okay. All right. So the whole reason we bring up Balaam and tell the whole story about Balaam being a prophet and Balaam talking to God and God talking back.
Now, one thing I will give Balaam credit for, in all the times that he told Balak, hey, let's try it again, hey, let's do this, hey, he specifically said multiple times, I will only do what God allows me to do. I will only say, he's like, we can ask again. It's kind of like the little kid who knows they're not allowed to go play. And they're like, you can ask my daddy. Or I'll go ask my daddy again. Daddy's told you no 4 times. You ain't going outside to play. But he's like, we can go. If you come with me, and maybe we give him some chocolate, and he'll tell me. You know, it really is. It's like a little kid going back to God over and over again going, Daddy, please now?
Let's take out the trash, and then go tell him we took out the trash and ask again and see what he says.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's hard. But he never disobeyed, and so I do give him credit for that part. Like he told Balak, look, I still got to follow Daddy, and hey, look, still got to, now, he did some other stuff, but I mean, he is up front with his long con game he's trying to pull.
Yeah, but he does, I guess, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Yeah, he does end up getting his money. It's not recorded in Numbers chapter 24, but we know he does because of what Jesus tells us in Revelation chapter 2 about Balaam and Balak. Before he pieces out, he lets Balak in on the secret that Israelite men are really fond of the whores. And they really like to eat food that's been sacrificed to other gods. And so you should invite them to your sacrifices and make sure that their men know that you got hookers. And then, Balak pays him and he goes, and Balaam goes home. So, there's still that thing where Balaam screwed up there at the end. But he held out so long, but it's like that one song where it's like, I'm only human.
Well, it's one of those things where he again tried to go around what he was told. He allowed greed to run his life so much that he was willing to sacrifice. Okay, I'm not going to curse him like I was told.
Yeah.
But I'll give you a hint. I'll give you the cheat code for the game.
It says I'm leaving, and I'm just gonna whisper this in your ear while we hug goodbye.
Yeah.
Slip that money in my pocket, and I tell you a secret.
Yeah.
But the reason we brought it up, the whole reason we brought it up, is that Balaam, who had God's ear, who talked to God, who God talked back, he wasn't an Israelite.
Nope.
He wasn't an Israel. He wasn't a descendant of Abraham.
Mm-mm.
He didn't follow any Abrahamic religion. He certainly wasn't a Christian. And God still talked to him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And same thing with Job. Right? So I think my major complaint with not my major complaint, but one of my first complaints with the order of the books of the Bible is the lack of chronological orderness, right? Because if we're really going to line things back up the way they happened, we need to read Genesis chapter 1 through Genesis chapter 12 and then skip to the book of Job.
Yep.
And then go back to Genesis 13, right? Because right after God talked to Abraham in Genesis 12, then God taunts Lucifer with, have you considered my servant Job? How there's no one more righteous or faithful than Job, right?
And most people believe, oh, well, he was just, and, you know, well, he had to be Abrahamic because of where it is and and you're like,
Nope.
You know.
Now, they're parallel stories.
Yeah.
The stories of Abraham and Job, time-wise, are parallel stories. Job wasn't an Israelite. He wasn't of the Abrahamic faiths. He wasn't a Christian. And his friends, who are also considered prophets, you know, the three guys that were going real hard against him, not the younger guy that then was like, you guys are whack. This is not how things are working at all. He's not considered a prophet. The one that was right, he's not considered a prophet. But the three older guys who were way off the mark, and Job himself, are all historically considered prophets of the Lord, who are outside of what we think of as the standard monotheistic religions. And so when we look back on history, we see God showing up here and there and there and there and there, and we see humans trying to grasp and understand those glimpses of God, and we get whole religions built around them, right? We've got like Zoroastrianism, which is like, it's like Christianity, but pre-Christ, but then with a bunch of like spiritual stuff that Christians don't really think about thrown in. And the Magi themselves, yes, ma'am? It's not running on Facebook anymore? We're not on Facebook anymore.
Interesting. We're still on Twitch.
Facebook must have just kicked us off. I don't know. Okay, thank you, sweetheart. So, yeah, I guess we're not on Facebook Live right now.
Twitch says they're still live and kicking 40 minutes.
Yeah, according to the Restream thing here, everything's still live. Anyway, so the Magi, that Hebrew word Magi, is actually the word for Zoroastrians. It's the Hebrew word for Zoroastrians. So when these people came with gold, frankincense, and myrrh, looking for the
Messiah,
or they would have called it the Sociant, the birth of the Sociant. Well, actually, Sociant's more of an I think it's more of a event, less of a person. Anyway, when they came looking for the Messiah, it was because their religion told them to look for the birth of the Messiah.
Yeah.
Right? And they're not Abrahamic religion. They're extra, they're not Abrahamic religion. And they were coming to look for the Messiah because their religion told them the Messiah was coming.
Yeah.
And then they saw the star, and the religion had told them about the star, and they followed the star, and they found Jesus. And those are Zoroastrians, right? And so we have there was a conversation going before all this coronavirus and Black Lives Matter stuff came back up to the forefront, about religion and why does Christianity think they have exclusive rights on God and religion, and the honest answer is, if we're honest with ourselves, we don't have exclusive right on God, right? what we have exclusive right on is that God sent his son to reach out to humanity. Okay? And we need in our conversations and in what we're doing, we need more to recognize that Jesus is and was and has always been God. And because there's a lot of talk of, well, God says and God loves you and God can save you and unfortunately in English we've separated God and Jesus when they're the same person,
Yeah.
So I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, no, I agree with you. It's that whole thing about there were multiple. God reached out. God chose Abraham to be his people, but he reached out to the different tribes that were spread out in different ways to try to bring them. Okay, I need everyone to realize I'm sending someone to save you. Yeah. And that is the part that is the important part. So, like, the problem is a lot of people, they take an approach of, well, all religions are valid. And it's like, okay, kind of. There are lots of religions that led towards Christ. There are lots of times that God showed himself to try to get people towards Christ more. And then people took them away from where they started. And, we got to focus on the Christ part more than the Judaism or the, any of the other aspects. We got to focus on the Christ part of, Christianity.
Christianity.
Because that's such an important part. Is it's not about how you get to Jesus. It's all about Jesus. That's the important part of our religion, not a rule set, not a, who you were born by, where you were born, when you were born. It's about Jesus.
Yeah, when I look at other religions, I like to look at the first person, right? So like Buddha himself, or I can't remember the name, that the Zoroastrian founder guy's name. Gosh. Anyway, I like to look at the first person, and because I like what you always say. You always say
it's always
the
dude.
Next guy.
It's always the second dude.
It's always the second dude that screws everything up. It's always the second dude.
And he's always power hungry. The second dude is always power hungry.
Yeah.
Except for there's one cult I can think of where it wasn't the second dude. Actually, there's two. But, drugs were involved. So it happens.
Well, like even with Christianity, though, like when you talk about not necessarily the second dude, but you talk about the second generation, right? You got Peter and Paul and John. All these guys are the first generation. And then out of nowhere, this guy in Rome goes, well, yeah, now I'm the Pope and I'm going to be the leader of the church and you're going to follow me. And the rest of the church was like, okay, dude, you go do your thing with your split and we're going to keep doing what we're doing. And of course, that became the Orthodox Church.
The first church split was the second generation.
Yeah, it was the second generation. It wasn't the first generation. It was the next guys.
Or what happens sometimes is the first guy gets it right for a certain amount of time, and then all of a sudden goes off the rails.
Goes
and you're
off the deep end. Oh, man.
Like, I didn't watch all of it, but I was watching part of the Waco thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
And when you watch it, he's like, God, 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 God. And then all of a sudden he's like, and I am the Messiah. And he had gotten people so attached, they just went, yay! And it's like, okay, wait. You were talking about God is love, and God is this, and God is that. And yeah, it was all deep. And then you just went, phew. And sadly, a lot of people went, phew, with you. And the people that didn't, there were issues. But I was watching it, and I was like, it's amazing how that can happen. And you can see where even in one person's lifetime, you go from normalcy to insanity. And people just go, uh-huh. And you're like, wait, how does that even happen?
I mean, Hitler,
Yep.
right?
Hitler
We
is
talk
another
about
example.
Hitler. Hitler was an upstanding, well-liked, highly praised by other world leaders,
Yep.
gentleman of government, right? And everybody liked him. He had the charisma. Winston Churchill constantly praised him. Mahatma Gandhi praised Hitler. And even when Hitler went off the deep end, Mahatma Gandhi went on the record as saying, well, I don't believe all these rumors about Adolf. There's no way the man I met could do the things that you're saying he's doing. I don't believe that. That's not
And
who he is.
that was one of the things that made the propaganda so hard, was people saw what he was as he rose to power. And now there's a conversation of, okay, was he, there are some people who believe he went nuts, and there are some people who believe he was nuts the whole time and was so sociopathic that he was able to convince everyone that he wasn't. And because we don't know his heart, we don't know.
But either theory's valid.
Yeah.
And we do know he was nuts at some point, because in autopsy, they found that layer of mercury on the inside of his skull that built up from working in the mercury mines as a child, right? This was done to him. He was not just as much a victim as the people he victimized, but as a child, he was a victim. And then as an adult, he victimized others to a huge extent.
Yeah. He believed in the rule of multiplicity, definitely. Because he escalated that one.
He escalated that quick, yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where when you look at it, there's so often people and teachers, and the example we're using tonight, Balaam, always followed God, always did what, and then for him it was money. For other people it's power. For other people it's, it's so easy to outsell your morals for some other thing when you are a human. Because sadly we're fallen creatures, and we are in a world where, it's not the flesh and blood that we have to deal with more than it is the spiritual side of things. And we always have so much piling up against us. We always have to guard ourselves to make sure we are following accuracy, not just the people around us or things,
Right.
Because that's how you go sideways. So easily.
So easily sideways. Yeah. So here in our last 3 minutes, do you know anything about the Samaritans? The story of the Good Samaritan.
Do you want me to tell the truth? Do you want me to play dumb for the audience?
Well, the truth is good.
I know enough. I learned a whole lot about them in school. They're, kind of like cousins to the Israelites, kind of.
Something like that, yeah.
Way. They followed Judaism to a certain degree, but not really. And they worshiped on a different mountain. And they really, really hated each other. And then there's a bunch of other stuff also. But, I mean, that's kind of like the important stuff.
Right. So the Samaritans and the descendants of Abraham are one and the same, right? All the way up until Israel goes into captivity in Babylon under Nebuchadnezzar, okay? The Israelites that had gone up into the mountains to put up Ashtoreth poles and worship Ashtor were saved from being captured and taken to Babylon because they were living up in the mountains. And the people of Babylon didn't want to go up into the mountains to get them. And that created the offshoot of the Samaritans, who then over time did abandon the worship of Ashtor and get back on track with following the law. And they worshipped on the mountain because Jacob went to the mountain, and he built a well nearby and revitalized the whole system, And so they were also waiting for the Messiah. But the main issue between why the Israelites of Jesus' day hated the Samaritans of Jesus' day is because the Samaritans wanted to worship on the mountain where the Messiah would return to when he comes to rule the world for 1,000 years. And the Israelites wanted to worship at the temple in Jerusalem where the sacrifices were made for sin. And that was why they hated each other. Because they wanted to worship in two different spots. I bet a lot of people felt dumb when John the Revelator wrote Revelations and Jesus comes back and he puts one foot in the water and one foot on the mountain of the Samaritans before he starts ruling the world.
Yeah, and just think of how they'd feel nowadays with, you know, how many, you know, houses of worship are all over the world now, and for both, you know, for Judaism and for, you know,
Yeah.
it's you got to imagine how they'd be like, huh? No, you're all wrong.
You're all wrong. You're all wrong. If you're
And
not
that's-
living in Jerusalem, you're doing it wrong.
And that's why people are still fighting the war. I mean, fighting constantly over that area of the world. Because
Yeah.
a lot of it is religion-based, not necessarily
Really good. Yeah.
people-based.
It's sad when humanity loses its value because of religion.
And then the deep-seated hatred that builds over generations is also a huge thing of, you know, it does cause, you know, oh, well, let's use modern times, something that happened only over, you know, we all know the story of mountain people, you know, this group of mountain people hated that group of mountain people and they've been shooting at each other for years. And why? Because, you know, the Hatfields and the McCoys is one example. And there's other examples all over television and movies and everything. And that happens in a couple of generations. Why? Because Granddaddy said that Granddaddy was and, you know, he said it was my land. And it happens a lot quicker than the generations and thousands of years of fighting over the Middle East. And that's what causes so many political issues there.
Yep. Indeed. All right. So we are about 10 minutes out from an hour of the broadcast. We started a little late because we were having some technical difficulties. But then, okay, my laptop was having some technical difficulties. Yeah. So.
Hey, at least I'm lighted correctly today.
And then my earbuds died, and I had to switch to these monster headphones. I had these charging correctly this time, and they still died in the middle of the broadcast. All right. So the podcast coming out tonight is called John the Baptist versus Jesus of Nazareth. Dum, dum, dum. What are you looking at me that way for? It's fun. It's like a boxing match. What? Why are you still looking at me like that?
Sometimes your choices of titles hurt my brain, my friend.
Why? Why does that hurt your brain?
Sometimes they do, and I love you.
Why does this particular one hurt your brain?
Because neither of those two people would ever want to be versus the other.
Ah, but John's disciples very much wanted John to fight Jesus.
Oh, I'm fully aware. I'm fully aware.
And we're going to talk about it. We're going to air some dirty laundry. We're going to talk about it.
Okay.
So that comes out tonight, so go and listen to that. And then there will not be a D-Life Ladies Devotional tomorrow morning. The coronavirus has squashed that until further notice. You can catch the audio version of the new podcast tonight wherever you listen to podcasts. And then the video version comes out on Wednesday night. If you want to see my pretty blue eyes and my face and see what shirt I wear recording this podcast, because that seems to be a topic of conversation lately, is what shirt is Pastor Billy going to wear this time? I don't have that many shirts, but, you know. So go check that on Wednesday night at 7. All these times are Central Daylight Savings Time. And then come back next Sunday sometime between 6:30 and 6:40 or 6:45. Somewhere right in that window if we're having technical difficulties.
Right
join
before
us again
6:30 some days, you know.
to join us again for this live conversation where we will hash out the conversation over John the Baptist versus Jesus of Nazareth. Sunday. Anyway, yeah. All right, so now we got this like 30-second buffer thing we have to do because it's going to cut off everything we say. So peace out, y'all. Newms and I are going to sit here and talk for a little bit to fill that buffer. We love you. Have a good week.
Love you guys.
Adios.
Kill the pot of bean.
I'm working on it. It's got this little power button to stop the and it takes me like 3 or 4 times hitting the power button to get it to actually register the hit.
We're still on.
That's cool.
I was telling Tina.
You're not talking to me. You're talking to somebody else. I see.
Womp, 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 womp. This is the desk I'm thinking about getting.
Which one? White paper. Oh, nice. So big.
Because that would give me, behind me would be the hutch with stuff, and it would look very professional.
Very professional.
Very professional. While
Like
I
my
fill it with
professional
toys.
backdrop here.
I would
that
fill
I
it.
bought in
I would fill it with toys.
You fill it with toys. Like my professional backdrop that I bought in the lawn and garden section of Walmart.
Hey,
Or
it
rug
looks.
that I hung on the wall.
I've seen worse.
Have you? You've seen worse than my bohemian rug on my wall?
All right, we're good at our 30 seconds. I'm gonna hit the button,
Cool.
and then they get to see behind the scenes because I still